My name is Sarah Lee Morgan Wallen Jimmy John Jones James, and I'm from the Alps of Georgia, Louisiana, St. Marie. And I didn't come to play. All right. I just want to, before we get started today, sort of, because it's our first time, like a virgin. Anywho, bitch, this wig is fierce. Oh, okay, hold on. Lord, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, items of business today. You may believe that I affiliate with a political party. I do not. And I am understanding that I will be far from the most beautiful, abundant, well spoken, perfect, beautimous political diva for y'all. But I'm just trying my best. I'm talking about what, I feel, these are some of the things that I heard growing up. These are some of the issues that I heard from the other side in my own home growing up. And I'm sort of trying to provide that insight and sort of going from, a process where, I'm someone who's deconstructed. I'm someone who is really just sort of tried to take each political issue separately and just sort of examine them, look at the history. And I want to just sort of go on that same journey here. And at the same time, also talk about one pop culture, one fun thing. Because we all need a little fun in our lives. If you disagree with me, you're a God-given diva, bitch. Okay? And that's your right as a red-blooded American. I hate the phallic shape of this. But I'm not trying to reheat anyone's nachos here, okay? So if I mess up, I apologize. We're trying to keep it fun, fresh, historical, and just sort of provide a couple different perspectives, y'all. So let's get right into it and hypnotize y'all. Let's go. Side note, bitches. If this camera's shaking, if y'all see something reflecting in these glasses, mind your business. Mind your bloody business. Oh, we're not British. Mind your... Alright, so, for this next bit, we're gonna do something that I'm fairly decently passionate about, frankly. You know, I know that I'm Southern, but that don't mean I don't tango, okay? And I'm a woman of of really high taste, frankly. Um, and I am deeply, deeply impassioned for the MILF community. I and I can't emphasize that enough. Okay? Like I can't be tested about this. So, we're going to get into what I believe to be the top 10 MILFs of all time. Yeah. 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 So let's just get into it. Yeah. Top 10 MILFs, y'all. So coming in hot. Coming in real hot. Yeah. Um our resident baddie. Resident baddie. Jennifer Beals. Loved your work in the L Word. Sensational. Sensational. Oh, sensational. Loved your appearance at the Renee Rapp concert. We were locked in, tuned in for that. And yeah, I know I'm from the sticks. I know I'm from a trailer park. I know my name is Tamara Riley, but Tamara Keith Beth Ann Riley, but we're locked in for this. No, we're really locked in. We're really locked in. Coming in really, really hot at number 9, Viola Davis. You put everything you have into your roles. You deliver the monologue. Deliver. Like, when that snot is on your nose and How to Get Away with Murder, like, unbelievably fierce. Unbelievable. And I won't go further than that, but just know, bad. Now we're coming in really, really, really hot with Sandra Oh. Now, also, this is sort of a really good point to bring up semantics about the word MILF. MILF means nothing more than you're over the age of 35. And you're bad. Real bad. Really, really bad. Okay? Loved your work in Grace. What you did in Killing Eve for the community was sensational. Like, the edits, I Do Hot in My Sleep. Like, thank you. Thank you for that. No, thank you. No, thank you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. She's real bad. She's real bad. Also, she loves a dance party. She's very intellectual. I can sense that. And like, there's nothing more than that. There's nothing more than fierceness, than gayness, dance. I mean, do I need to go on? But we're still really in the weeds here. You know what I'm saying? Like, really in the weeds. Now we've got. Now, I know that this starts to really hot. I frankly don't even know how to approach the sensitivity of this one. Wow. So there will be a lot of redheads on this list. Did I get the right lighting for that? No cuts. No cuts on the apology? Uh-oh. Right. No cuts. So we're still... alright. Yeah. 7th for Miss Chastain. Now, chemistry's so good, we're not even talking to our co-stars. Yeah. We saw you in Scenes from a Marriage. No, we saw you. We saw you. And we listened. Okay. Wait, is that ASMR? Okay, I have no idea, so please tell me if this is ASMR. And like, again, the fact that I'm holding this is just irritating. Don't get me started. Like, this is a MILF list, and I have to be... Don't get me started. And I've already been... Okay. We're still rolling? Yeah, we're still rolling. Okay. So, back to the point. I know that there's going to be a lot of MILFs on here that are redheads. That was by pure coincidence. I will not be accepting any allegations in the comments. It's just like, it's a really, really dark, deep history for me, and like, I just prefer not to talk about it with you guys. And not my ice machine. Okay, yeah. The split personality is back. Okay. She's so bad. I don't even really need to... I don't really even need to... Now, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up school lunches here. I know a lot of y'all got some beef, or not, and y'all should know mad about that. But the traps on this lady, and that's purely what we're going on here. The traps on this woman. I'm not quite sure there's anything. Yeah, I'll get a couple more apple slices. Yeah. And I know that's saying a lot for me, like, but I'll take a couple more apple slices. Yeah. Go ahead. Put them on. Oh, you want to add broccoli too? Michelle. Miss Michelle. Michelle. Barack, Michelle. I don't really want to get into this. Like, that's really personal for. Oh, that's really personal for me too. But political affiliation aside, she's real bad. Obama. Wait, hold on. Let me try something. Obama. I could be blowing the back out of this microphone right now. Blowing the back out of this microphone. But that's separate conversation. Wow. This is really deep. This is really, really deep for me. Coming in back to back. Like we're hitting the second of 3 redheads on this top 10 list. Sarah Snook. Now, if y'all don't, do you see what I see? Like, if you guys need edits for proof, that's fine by me. We can get together. We can exchange our TikTok folders. Clearly, you're not in the game like I'm in the game. Because if you were in the game, you know. Can I get to the yams? Sweet yams. Show me the way. This girl's got yams. Yeah. She's got yams. So let's be responsive and sensitive for that, okay? First of all. And now we could do a deep dive on Succession. I don't have the time, the therapy budget, or the capacity to do that for you guys here today on this stage, but she's so bad, okay? We've got a strong dude, I'm being so exposed with these redheads right now, okay? 4th place, Bryce Dallas Howard. Yeah. Do I need to go any further? Now, before you guys come up in here and say they're all the same person, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Yeah. But I'm not taking any questions, comments, or concerns about this one. I'm not. No. I'm just not doing it. Strong 3rd place. We have our bronze medalist, Olympic triathlete of MILFs, Miss Kerry Washington. Y'all, I don't think there's much else we can do about that. Yeah. So, I'm a boss. If y'all don't watch her on Scandal, woo! Lord have mercy, okay? Now, Shonda really makes a complex character, and we love that for you, Diva. But y'all just need to love that for that. And like, wow, she's so bad. Like it could bring a grown man to tears because she has no business being this bad. Aging like fine wine. She really embodies what we're even here today for. What we're even doing here today. She's here for it. Strong number 2, Miss Sex Education herself, Gillian Anderson. She was also in The Fall. That show, I got a couple ERP sessions on for that one. Yeah. We did a little bit of, yeah. So I'll forgive you for that one. You were sensational as that role, though. I'll give that too much to you, but whew. No, the second I saw her in sex education, I was like, yeah, add it to the cart. And like in a very respectful, it is so respectful. I love women. I am very respectful for them. I don't even have to explain that. But she's the baddie that we were looking for. Okay? Now, Before we reveal number one, I just want to give a couple disclaimers. Do I know how old she is today? Yes. Do I know what she looks like today? Yes. But do I care? No. So, can I get a drum roll, please? That is my drum roll, okay? And first place for the MILFs. Yeah! Julie Andrews. The hills are alive. Like, I don't even want. I'll be your sock puppet. Yeah. I'll be the puppet at the puppet show. Don't do too much digging into my, like, past. But down bad crying at the gym. I will not say where I stand with any fandom. I'm not getting into that today with you guys. But the one fandom I am a part of, till death do us part, and even them, Julie Andrews. Now, I wouldn't publicly admit it after the passing of this wonderful woman, just like I wouldn't put Betty White on here out of respect, but just know, a couple years ago, she would have been showing up. She would have been on the list. But, I mean, there's just not a more deserving. Princess Diaries 2, bam, jorking it. Princess Diaries 1, bam, jorking it. Her watching Cynthia Erivo's performance of Edelweiss, bam, jorking it. I don't know what more information could be had. I'm done. Thank you. Hi, y'all. It's me, Shirley Ann Morgan Beth Wallen, coming in hot in the Situation Room. We're doing something called Get Comfy to Get Uncomfy. I've got a blanket. I've got my favorite Momo. I've got a nice water. I challenge you to get comfy, grab a snack, grab a coloring book, and lock in. Lock in, y'all! So I want to sort of talk about sort of the general sentiment with the recent shutdown, with everything that's going on in our government. I think that people are waking up to the fact that, my government doesn't really help. It only really seems to hurt people and cause like this weird Bermuda Triangle of people being just crazy and dishonest and prioritizing obviously their own power, wealth, and fame. And people are dying. So again, people are waking up to the fact that I don't think my government really serves me, and I don't feel like I have a lot of agency right now. And I feel really stuck and powerless to this system. And I want to say that if you're recognizing that for the first time, that's whiteness. So, like, that is also an important distinction, but I think people on a very structural, foundational level are starting to think, like, oh, this is all corrupt. Like, this government doesn't serve me. It does not represent the interest of the average person. I feel like I have no agency, and I want things to change. I want my life to get better. I want my neighbors' lives to get better. But my government's not doing anything about that. And instead, we're just mindlessly blabbering about partisan bullshit. When people are dying, when people are starving, when people are on the street, when, violence is increasing, all of these issues, and it's just Trump. Like, Democrats, Republicans, MAGA, whatever. And I think that from if you just step out of the craziness of whatever you feel you're being pulled to politically, just this force of political, I don't know where it comes from, but I think you arrive at your beliefs throughout your lifetime. I think taking a step back and being what do I want of my government? What must my government provide for me? And what should we demand that it provides to us? That's the question. And I think that the system requires, infighting and violence and just awful, awful, awful cruelty and apathy that we've nurtured and maintained, to where whatever horror they show us right in front of our faces doesn't matter. And so in light of recent events, I want to talk about SNAP, the myth of the welfare queen, and sort of how we continuously see hunger, houselessness, loss of a job, using Medicare, using WIC, using CHIP as a moral failing of an individual. I genuinely think that's so interesting. It's obviously tied to race, but especially as Gen Z waking up, and conservatives who haven't deconstructed, who haven't, whatever, who are in Gen Z. And I'm not saying that you have to be a Christian to be a conservative by any means, but, or a Democrat or whatever, but I think we have to analyze these issues, and it really is just as simple as providing people healthcare, providing people food, providing people support. And they make you think that you, the average voter, are so much better for not using welfare. You are, goodness is equated with the usage and utilization of welfare services. And again, they need that separation. They need that just really violent rhetoric surrounding a lot of these topics. Because, I've worked in home services. I've worked with, welfare programs, and most people are just a paycheck away from that. And, they need to create this cognitive distortion to distract you from the fact that, again, one paycheck, that's all it takes. That's all it takes until you're behind on your housing payment. And then you have to decide between bills, housing, feeding your kids. And nobody should ever, ever, ever be in that situation. And most of us are very close to it. Except for a handful of random people that we have no idea what they do or what benefit they provide. And I think, again, a lot of people are waking up to that fact, that class consciousness, that this isn't a partisan issue. We're all almost there. And we need to wake up and have empathy, because seriously, if you genuinely take a step back and think that there is something morally incorrect with, genuinely think that there's anything wrong with providing women, children, veterans, disabled people, because we do have eligibility requirements, and fraud is less than 1%, but if you think there's something wrong with that, even if it wasn't, even if immigrants or someone from another country or another creed, race, ethnicity, sexuality, any difference from you needed help, if you've sincerely been convinced that that's incorrect, wake up, because that's just hate. we're all alive for so little time. And like, make it matter, make it count, wake up. That's the bare minimum. Especially now. We're in the Situation Room. Okay, so we're going to go into a brief timeline of SNAP, food assistance, and how welfare and also stereotypes about welfare began. I'm also going to mention uncomfortable stereotypes. And these are things that I have, like, really disgracefully, shamefully heard growing up in communities that I've been in, as a child before I deconstructed and left the church. And it's frankly foul and disgusting. And like, you can argue about whether or not you should even discuss those things. But I think unless we have like completely honest conversations about these things, nothing changes, and like we can't confront why we think those things. And if that's even sincere, like, obviously bigotry is never sincere, it's uneducated, but it's uncomfortable to confront, even in these like micro ways. And we'll get into it. Okay, so in the late 19th and early 20th century, there was no real organized food assistance. Hunger relief was primarily handled by settlement houses, by like local churches, and mutual aid societies. Now, this country has a long, awesome history of mutual aid societies, and they're all run by Black immigrant labor groups. Like all those, Black and immigrant and labor group majorities. They, spearheaded the food assistance program and really, bought into this. Any penny that I get, I give back to the community. I see starvation, it's unacceptable. And any spare dollar that I have, I will recontribute. Yeah. There was no federal role. Hunger was seen as a local and moral problem rather than structural. Then in the 1920s and 30s, there was an overproduction crisis in agriculture after World War I. And we saw like huge price collapses for food. And so government started holding food surpluses because there was this growing awareness that like food security was so widespread, and there was this cognitive distortion of, okay, we're letting food rot in the grocery stores, and I'm seeing children starving all around me. If you're a teacher, you're seeing kids go hungry at school. You're seeing your local, business owners, their families, people at church, people in your congregation. Maybe you were starving. And we're having a overproduction crisis in the country. And yet so many people are still going hungry. So that cognitive distortion really led to like, what do we do about hunger? Clearly it's more foundational, obviously. But then the Great Depression happened, 1929 to 1939. Tens of millions were unemployed, like the stock market crashed. And there was mass hunger. You couldn't go anywhere in America without seeing hunger and, just these broken communities and families. Then 1933, there was the Federal Surplus Relief Corporation, FSRC, and that was made by FDR. His solution to this was that we buy up surplus foods and commodities, whether that was wheat, milk, butter, pork. Also, I'm in the Big Apple, so if y'all say, hair sirens, just mind your business again. Mind your business. Continue minding it. So 1933, FSRC was created. We're buying up food commodities. So again, whether that's wheat, pork, milk, eggs, whatever, the government's buying them, and through really unorganized means, just because there was no eligibility rules, this only really worked when surpluses existed. the food was just being distributed to households and soup kitchens, like A to B, point A to point B. And then in 1939 to 43, the first food stamp program was created by Henry Wallace, and it was a huge, huge, huge part of FDR's New Deal, creating social welfare, like really trying to transform the government into the idea that we help people. We're this massive, massive machine of power and wealth and production, which, is inherently immoral, but, can we help our citizens through that? And, we're just trying to support families and also increase demand for agricultural surpluses. So the real foundation of that was the old orange stamps. You can get $1 of stamps for every $1 you spend out of pocket. And then there was blue food stamps for surplus foods. So whether that was beans, dairy, again, those surplus foods, whenever they saw them. And that was implemented across the country over like 100 cities. And then in 1943, the program was terminated because there was this huge labor boom after World War II. The program saw such high administrative costs, and there were a lot of reduced agricultural surpluses. Now, we saw a reduction in unemployment, but again, we're still seeing this cognitive dissonance. Certain people are going hungry. Who are those certain people? Immigrants, disabled people, black people, people in the rural South, in rural Appalachia, the urban poor even. And we see this persistent poverty even though, nationally our economy is starting to look good. And the question always goes, for who? For who? Then the federal government maintains small-scale commodity distribution for the poorest counties in the country. Because in 1950s, these reports, again, started coming out. Oh, we have the greatest economy. We're hearing that there's severe, severe hunger in the rural South. There's infant malnutrition among all these low-income, black families. There is a lot of migrant labor group issues with persistent poverty and hunger. And looky at this cookie, Bozo Eisenhower. Now, I'll try to be respectful, but they avoided national action on hunger, despite all this data coming out. Like, people are desolate, people are poor, they're poorer and poorer and poorer. And you're just marketing the best, economy. How does that not lead to a sense of abandonment? The government was never created for some people, and that's just like the disenfranchisement of intersectionality. As you check certain boxes, the less and less the government looks like it's built for you. And again, hunger was at that time reframed as an issue of local necessity instead of federal responsibility. Then in the 60s, the modern SNAP era began. In 1961, JFK authorized a food stamp pilot program in 8 counties. And, compared to the 39 model, it eliminated those surplus stamps and just allowed people to purchase stamps that equated to their monthly food budget needs. From the pilot, they sort of learned a lot of key lessons. They learned a lot of key lessons. There was reduced reliance on stigmatizing commodity boxes. There was a lot of increased household food spending. And a lot of people don't realize that SNAP hugely benefits local grocery stores and economies. Because it's that 1-to-1 ratio of stamps. People who were not able to buy food at all are now re-entering the economy through the support. So, when SNAP's not getting funded, when this government shutdown's, stopping, it's not like they people who are using food stamps magically get money to spend. Magically, I'm going to go to the grocery store and just buy the same amount of groceries that I did before. That's just not how that works. And so the economy suffers by not funding these welfare programs. And this is when we start seeing also a lot of public pressure. In the 60s, CBS released this huge documentary called Hunger in America, and it really exposed child malnutrition and its impact on the country, on communities, and on the economy, past the obvious, horrendous individual impact of going hungry. Around that time, civil rights activists highlighted hunger in the rural South, especially in Black communities. There's still this huge denial of hunger as an issue, and it's like, but who is the visible American? That's a good question. Like, who's being represented in the media? Who's being represented in data? It's not people who don't have phones. It's not people who are, immigrants, laborers, Black Americans. And so people are outraged. There's a lot of civil rights action and grassroots motivation during this time. And then in 1964, there was the Food Stamp Act, a part of Lyndon B. Johnson's huge war on poverty, which established permanent federal food assistance in 1964. And it was, household eligibility was tied to income. There was a lot more uniform program rules. You were still required to purchase food stamps monthly. There was a huge federal share for administrative costs and federal subsidies for groceries rather than commodities. Again, we're eliminating that, like, you can buy this, and we have surpluses, but what you can get at the grocery store is what you can get with food stamps, eliminating a lot of those barriers. However, at this time, a lot of rural counties opted out, especially in places that were still segregated. Southern politicians resisted because there was this idea that food stamps gave Black households more autonomy. And a lot of historic white power structures obviously resisted that. If we're giving people the means, the tools to have financial freedom, our power structures obviously cannot exist. Then in the expansion era, in 1968, the Citizens Boards of Inquiry into Hunger found huge distribution failures. And MLK was very instrumental in calling for national action, political action on hunger. And obviously it's a very, very reflective issue of racial inequality at that time. And it always was. And in 1969, the White House urged expansion. They came out and they were like, we're listening to you. We're going to expand the program. We're going to do it. These amendments required all counties to offer food stamps, and there was a massive enrollment surge among Black communities, the urban poor, and low-income single mothers. In 1973 and 74, there was a huge economic crisis, so there was a lot of high inflation and recession, so the demand for food assistance intensified, which led to the 1977 Food Stamp Act amendments, which eliminated the purchase requirement, which was the hugest reform in the program's history. It really established this idea of federal foresight, simplified eligibility, streamlined applications, allegedly, reduced stigma, all of that. Then, bam, bam, bam. You have a good thing, you can't have it for long. You can't have it for long. In the 1980s, the Reagan era. Oh, how pleasant for everybody. They started arguing as an administration that the program of food assistance required dependency. And in 1981, there was this huge Budget Reconciliation Act that cut outreach funding, eligibility, and benefit levels. And there was the growth of this fraud rhetoric. that, Reagan was giving these huge political speeches that stamps were being abused by welfare queens and strapping young bucks, which were, very common radicalized stereotypes targeting Black people at the time. So, the impact of this was hundreds of thousands were removed from the rolls. And there was a huge increase in food insecurity, especially for Black families. Feeding your family became a violent act. It always was, but it became an openly stigmatized violent act. And I sort of want to mention, after this, we go into the 2000s and the 2020s, the Great Recession. SNAP was proven to be beneficial. There was, the pandemic eras where SNAP became so critical for unemployed workers, for families, for children without, the consistency of having meals at school. And today, SNAP serves 42 million Americans annually. It is the single largest anti-hunger program. And as I mentioned before, the fraud rate is under 1%. 1%. And the majority of recipients are disabled adults, elderly people, children, and mothers. And I sort of wanted to readdress and dive just contextually deeper into the stigma of the welfare queen. If you'll notice in the news, when people are discussing welfare, when people are discussing a lot of these issues, it's always, well, it's so interesting that people with food stamps, have long nails and their hair's always done and they have nice bags and they have nice cars. So the government's paying for them to get food while they have nice this. So a couple things. First of all, that's gendered. That's so gendered. You never hear about, nails are gendered. Getting your nails done. Getting your hair done. Getting bags. We're not talking about Hellcats or sports jerseys, like men buy sports jerseys, or different shoes, or nice watches. The stereotype is products related to womanhood, being a woman, and attaining beauty. So it's targeted towards Black women also, especially in the linguistic context of hair, nails, bags. And I think the first step to redressing that bigotry is that is just completely unacceptable. And, we can argue about whether or not that's statistically untrue. It is statistically untrue. Again, the fraud rate is under 1%. But if you think that feeding a family, whether that's with a single father, a single mother, 2 moms, 2 dads, whatever, if you think feeding a family is wrong, I don't relate to you. I don't see the world the same way as you. And it's just sickening to have that as your priority. It's misogynistic. It's society's way of going, and it's always been the case ever since hunger has been perceived as a moral failing. Way back in the 1900s. You're going, now poverty transcends racial lines. The wealth gap is so large that everyone's significantly poorer than the rich people. Back when we're seeing food assistance programs and a lot of these stigmas arise, poverty did not really transcend ethnic lines. In this country, Black people, immigrants, people of color were poor. And I think it's naive to think that these stigmas are not just redressing of we cannot outright say that we don't want to help Black people. We don't want to help people of color. They don't deserve our help, despite the violent existence of people of color in our country. We can't say that. We can't say that outright. So we're going to redress this. We're going to repackage this as, wow, you must be a really, really shitty parent if you can't feed your kids. Oh, but I'm noticing stereotype, 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 and they all relate back to Black people. Political beliefs redressed as bigotry are not political beliefs, and you have to challenge them. Like, if you notice that such vile, poisonous hate, you're gonna get wrinkles faster. You're gonna age bad. Then you have to be growing and addressing and demanding for better things from our government. And there's no space for any of that language. It's just hateful. It's fake. Also, when I served families, there would be families of 4 with $120 of food stamps for the month. For 4 people, that's enough to get meat maybe for the month for a family of 4 in this economy. And there are so many fraud protections. Again, if your politics lead you to the answer of humanity being, we have to be selective, we have to restrict the use of food stamps, of welfare, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, do it yourself. I challenge you to question if your own belief says that or not. And a lot of the select few who are up there, who are more wealthy than you could literally even fathom, did they do that? Or did they exist in large networks of social capital that allowed them to be propelled to a better situation? Was it a $500 million loan? How do people become successful in this country? And there's just this division, and we have to stop it. So again, that was just a brief overview on SNAP. I think it's really important to sort of question. I also encourage you to read. I'm gonna best practices, include my sources for everything that I talked about today below. But start reading. The only thing that you have as a human is your knowledge, your intellect, is what's inside that can never be taken from you. So read all the time, question things, check your sources, and don't fall into the weird, bullshit, apathetic nonsense that we've been led to today. So, that's all, you all. This is Caroline from the Trailer Park. Daryl, I will be meeting you at the McDonald's for a custody exchange later today, 3 p.m. EST. If you're not back from your baby mama Jill's by then we are totally having a problem. Also, I don't know why the accent switched up. I think I'm looking a little more Carmela right now. So I'm just feeling that burden and necessity to represent that energy from within myself. But yeah, go read, go research, and get uncomfy, bitches. Hell yeah! Adios!